Welcome to Flutter Teacher. In this video, we will learn list data type in Dart. Before we start the video, let's look at a topic that we are going to cover in this video. We'll start from the topic what is list, growable and fixed length list, creating the list, accessing individual elements in the list, various ways of iterating the list, and finally, we'll talk about immutable, that is constant kind of list. So without wasting time, let's get started. What is basically a list? A list in Dart is equivalent to arrays in C and C++, Java and C#. So if you are a programmer from the C, C++ or Java background, you might know the concept called arrays. In Dart, lists are exactly similar to arrays in those languages. For those who don't know arrays and all, let's listen this example carefully. Consider I want to store a particular number. So in this case, I can create either int variable or a double kind of variable. And if I want to store 3 numbers or 4 numbers, then I can create 3 variables or 4 variables respectively. But consider I want to store 100 values, that is I want to store 100 numbers. Then creating 100 variables and working with those 100 variables is definitely complicated. We must say thanks for the concept called list in the Dart that allows you to manage these 100 values efficiently and without having any trouble. So wherever we want to deal with huge number of values, instead of creating those many variables, we'll simply go with the list. List is the ordered collection of index-based values. It means when you create a list and we go on adding the elements in the list, the original order of your adding the element is preserved, and each and every element has a unique index, that is called a unique number, based on which we can access that particular element. The index of list starts from 0, that is the index of first element is 0. It is exactly similar to the case in C, C++, Java. In list, duplicate elements are allowed. List supports generics. For those who don't know what generics is, don't worry, I will cover what is generics and details about the generics in my upcoming videos. That allows us to have a list where we can have this similar kind of elements or we can have a different kind of elements. Similar kind of elements means, let's say I have a list. In this list, all elements is of same type. It might be of all is of type integer, or either every element is of type double, or every element might be of type string. On the other hand, we can have a different type of values. That is, it's called a heterogeneous kind of list where each element can be of different types. A list can be growable in nature or it can be a fixed length list. If you want me to talk in detail with the list, I must say list in Dart is actually a predefined class that implements the iterable interface. That's the reason list has got so many properties and bunch of methods. For this video, I'm not going to talk about properties and the methods for the list. In my next video, you will get all those properties and you will understand the methods that the list supports. And believe me guys, list is the most widely used collection in the Dart and Flutter application. Let's look at this example. Here, I have created a list whose name is X. It has got 5 different values. So the first value 7 is located at the 0th position, and this element is actually called X of 0. So it has to be read like X of 0. Don't say it's like a X bracket 0. So the first element is called X of 0, second is called X of 1, and so on. So make sure that here the list index starts from the 0. Obviously, if I have the 5 elements, the last index will be the 5 minus 1, that is the 4. What is growable and fixed length list? As the name suggests, a growable list is a kind of list whose size can grow and shrink as per the requirement. That is, in this list, it's possible to add the new element and I can remove the existing element. On the other hand, the fixed length list is a kind of list where I cannot add the element and even I cannot remove the element from the list. That is, throughout my program, the length of this list is going to be same. It's not going to change. Now, in order to understand what is growable list and fixed length list, let's jump to the Dart pad. You can see I have created the list using where keyword. The name of list is item here, and in this list I have added 5 elements using the add method. I have also removed the element at second position using the method called remove add. Finally, I'm printing the elements. So I'm going to run this application and you can see I'm getting the 4 elements on the output. It means it's possible to add the element in this list, and even I can remove the element. So this type of list is called a growable list, where I can add the element, I can remove the element. The size of this list is not at all the fixed one. On the other hand, if I create the list in this way, let's say I'm using list.empty constructor. So using this, I can create the empty list. But when I use list.empty constructor, in this way, I'm getting an empty list, but this empty list is not a growable in nature. This is actually a fixed length list. That's the reason when I run this program, you can see I'm getting an exception, that is, I cannot perform add operation over this list, because the list that I have created in this way using the list.empty constructor, it's actually a fixed length list. It's not at all a growable list. However, I can use the option called growable. I'm writing here growable is equals to true. Now growable is actually a parameter in the constructor. I can specify a true and false here. When I specify a true here, you can see now these items, that is a list, it's actually a growable list. So that's the reason it gives me an output, and it's possible for me to add the element and to remove the element. Let's talk about how to create the list in Dart. Actually, Dart supports a variety of ways for creating a list. So let me explain all those one by one in this video. Let's see how to create empty list in the Dart. In order to create empty list, I have got two different options. Simply, I can use the string literals, that is, I can specify the opening and closing square bracket. This allows me to create an empty list. The second option, I can use the empty constructor. I can simply write list.empty. This also gives me the empty list of elements. But make sure that when I use this list literal, it is a kind of growable list. However, when I use list.empty, it's a kind of fixed length list. In this case, I cannot add or I cannot remove the element from the list. If you want to make it growable, simply you have to pass the parameter called growable true. And now the list that I have got using this list.empty with growable option true is a kind of growable list, so that happily I can add and I can remove the element from the list. That allows us to create a list with initial values. For this, simply we can use the var keyword, specify the name of your list, and within square bracket you can pass the values that you want to have inside your list. Or instead of using var keyword, we can use the list. Make sure that this list is actually the name of the class. That's the reason we have to write this L in capital letters. Here I have specified list of fruits. Make sure that when we create a list using var keyword or using simply the list, this kind of list is a dynamic. It means it's possible to have a different types of element in the list. Let's look at this example. You can see I have created a list called values. The first value is of type string, second is of type integer, and third is of type double. So this kind of list is called a dynamic list. So make sure that all these three that I have created here, these are the dynamic list. But let's say you don't want to have a dynamic list. You want to have a list of only specific type. So for this purpose, we can use the concept called generics. So if you don't know the generics, don't worry, I will cover this in my upcoming videos. So just look at this example. I have written here string, and inside this angular bracket, I have specified a string. So it means I want a list. The name of list is animals, and the string specifies each and every element of this list must be of type string. That's the reason you can see I have specified only string elements here. Now you might have a question, what if I am writing some different value other than a string? You can say when I specified integer value here, I'm getting the error. Yeah, you can see Dartpad is giving me error here for line number 14 that the integer can't be assigned to list of type string. I hope it's clear for you guys. When I use generics concepts, so it allows me to have a list of specific type. That has given the field constructor that allows us to create a list in which each and every element is filled with a specific value. Consider this example. Here I have created a list of items. I'm creating a list with list.field constructor. The first parameter is always the number of elements that I want in the list. In this case, I have specified 5 elements. 0 specifies the value for each and every element in the list. That is, when I print this list, you can see I'm getting 5 zeros on the screen. It means I have got a list of 5 elements and each element is having the value 0. Now if you say I don't want value 0, Instead of that, I want a value 25 for each element. Then simply write the 25, and if I rerun this program, you can see on my console I'm getting each and every element is having value 25. Make sure that when I create a list using this field constructor, this list is of type fixed length. That is, I can't add the element and I cannot remove the element. Let's try it. If I write items dot add, and if I'm trying to add some element, so during compile time it's not a problem, but when I run this program, you can find that Dartpad is giving me an error. I cannot perform the add operation. Make sure that the list you create using field constructor is not at all a growable in nature. So if you want to make list as growable, simply you have to write growable and pass the value true for it. Now this list of item is growable in nature and I can pass the value 10. Here we go. You can see I have the values. I have the 5 values with 25 and the last element is having value 10. That has given the constructor called generate, using which I can construct the list. While constructing a list, I can manage what value the list element can have by using the index I'm getting in the generator. For using this generate constructor, we have to pass two parameters. The first parameter is actually the length, that is number of elements that I want to construct in the list. Second, it accepts a function. This function is actually called a generator function. For those who don't know function and what it is, don't worry, I will cover all these things in detail in my upcoming videos. But let's understand. Here I have created a function and this function always takes integer value. This integer value is actually the index of the element, and make sure that this value will start from 0 because the list index starts from the 0. And in this case, I'm simply returning value index square, that is, for every element, the value of that element is actually the square of its index. So when I'm printing the items, you can see the values of list are actually 0, that is the square of 0, then square of 1, the square of 2, square of 3 and square of 4. This is how I have constructed the 5 value using the generate constructor. Dart allows us to create a list by using the elements from another list. For this purpose, Dart has given 3 different constructors. The first is list.form, second is list.off, and the third is list.unmodifiable. Let's examine each of them one by one. Here, I have created a list 1. It's actually the list of some animals, and using the values of list 1, I want to construct a list 2. So for this reason, I have used list.from and I have specified list 1 as a parameter. It means the list 2 will be constructed by using the values of list 1. So when I run this program, you can see I have printed the values of list 2. On my screen, I'm getting the values tiger, dog, rat, and the cat. These are actually the values present in list 1. So now list 2 has got all the values which are present in the list 1. Instead of using from constructor, I can use the of constructor. The of constructor will do the same task as the from. Let's run this program. You can see I'm getting the values tiger, dog, rat, and the cat. These are actually the values which list 2 has obtained from the list 1. You guys might have a question, if this from constructor and this of constructor is having the same purpose, what's the basic difference between them? Listen carefully. When I'm using a from constructor, this from constructor don't have a static type checking. Let's say this is actually a list of string, so I can specify like this one. Now consider I just want to create the list 2, but list 2 needs to be in the form of integer. So I can specify in this way and I can write int also here. Now what do you mean by it? When I specify a string here, it means list 1 is actually a list of string, and obviously I have all the string values in my list. When I'm writing list with int, it means list 2 must be of type integer, and when I'm calling the constructor from, I'm expecting that list 1 is of type integer and it should send me all the integer values so that I can store inside this list 2. But when I'm writing this program, you can see Dartpad is not giving me any error. The reason here is this from constructor don't have a compile time checking for the type. That's the reason when I run this program, I will get an exception. Instead of using the from constructor, if I use of constructor, you can see Dartpad is immediately giving me an error, that is argument type string cannot be assigned to parameter of type iterable int. It means if I use of constructor, Off constructor has a strong type checking that if I'm creating list of integer here, then this list one must be of type integer. So if it is not of type integer, definitely I will get an error. So make sure that the from constructor and off constructor, they have the same purpose. The big difference is in case of from, there is no static type checking performed during compile time, but in case of off, it has a strong type checking for the list elements. Let's say I want to construct a list and that has to be unmodifiable, that is a constant kind of list. In this case, I can use a constructor called unmodifiable. So simply use unmodifiable and I need to change it to string. Now, when I use unmodifiable, it means the list2 is created by using the values of list1. List1 is of course a growable in nature, so I can add the element in list1, even I can remove the element. But list2 is actually a constant kind of list. I cannot add or remove the element in list2. Let's examine this one. So if I write list1 dot add, let's say add some animal, let's say I'm adding monkey. So it's possible. And when I'm writing list2 dot add, let's try to add some another animal. Let's say I'm adding the ant. And when I run this program, you will find that I will get an exception here. Now let's talk about accessing the individual elements in the list. Dart provides two different options in order to access the individual elements in the list. The first one, I can specify the index after the list name. If I'm writing fruit and I'm specifying 0, this is actually called a fruit of 0. So this gives me an access to first element, that is if I print this element, I will get the mango. And when I'm writing fruit of 2 is equals to cherry, it means the second element, that is orange, will be replaced by the value called cherry. Instead of using this index option, Dart provides an alternate option that is called the element at method. Here you have to specify the index. Let's say I'm specifying 2 here. In this case, it gives me the element at second position from the list called fruits. Now, when I run this program, you can understand for the first print, I'm getting the output of this fruit of 0, that is, I'm getting the mango on the screen. For the second element, I'm changing the value to cherry. That's the reason when I'm printing the value of second element using element at 2, I'm getting the result called cherry here. And finally, I'm printing the values. Then you can see I'm getting the mango here as a 0th element. The element at first position is apple. The value cherry appeared here because I have changed the fruit of second element. And finally, it's having the value called banana. Let's understand different ways of iterating the list in Dart. Dart provides 3 different for loop in order to iterate the list. The first one is simple for loop, second is called for in loop, and third is called the for each loop. Let's examine each of them in detail. Here I have created a list of animal having the values tiger, dog, rat and the cat. These are the 4 values I have specified. Let's understand the first loop, that is a simple for loop. In simple for loop, you can see I have assigned the value 0 to I so that it will start from the first element, and the value of I is going up to the length -1, and I'm incrementing the value of I by 1. And simply I'm printing the values using animals of I, that is animals at the specific index. So when I run this program, you can see I'm getting the values tiger, dog, rat and cat. This is what output I have got from the first for loop. Dart provides the second loop, that is called a for in loop. In this case, we have to specify some variable, like I have created a variable using where keyword. Where animal, you have to use the keyword called in, and here I have specified my actual list. It means this loop will iterate for each and every element of this animal, and the individual element in this list will be assigned to this animal, so that if I print the animal, it will actually print all the elements in the list. You can see the output here: tiger, dog, rat and the cat. The last type of loop is called a for each loop. This loop is only available for the collections. So I have used here animals dot for each loop. Inside this for each loop, it's compulsory to pass a function as parameter, and this function takes the individual element as an object. So this function will execute for each and every element of the list individually. Now you can see when I run this program, this loop will print each and every element of this animals list, like the tiger, dog, rat and the cat. The immutable list, which is also known as a constant list, is a kind of list in which it's not possible to modify the elements. That is, we cannot change the values of list element, even we cannot add the element or we cannot remove the element from the list. Let's understand this one practically. Here you can see I have created a list of fruits here, and for specifying the list I have used the keyword called const. Whenever I use a const keyword while specifying a list, it will create a constant list. That's the reason if I try to change the value of second element to cherry and if I run this program, I will get an exception. It's not possible for me to update the value of this list. And even if I try to add some value, let's say I'm trying to add value banana in the list, and when I run the program, again I'm getting an exception. It's not possible to call add operation over this list. And if I try to remove the element, like say I'm trying fruits.remove add 0. I'm trying to remove the 0th element from the list, and when I rerun the program, you can see again I'm getting exception. I cannot call remove at method over the list because this list is a kind of list I have constructed using the const keyword, and it's actually a constant, that is immutable list. When I'm writing const keyword in this place, it means this fruit list is actually a constant. That is, I cannot modify the fruit list. So I cannot write fruit is equals to some values. So I cannot specify like this. So if I specify this, I will get an error because this fruit is actually a constant. You can see it's saying constant variable cannot be assigned with the value. It means this list is actually constant. I cannot modify the list. And as I'm writing const here, it means my list fruit is constant and all the values are actually constant. Means I cannot modify even the values of list. So if I try to specify like this, let's say fruit of 0 is equals to cherry. So it's not possible. So if I try to run the program, I will get an exception. However, when I use const keyword here, I cannot modify the contents of list, but I can assign another list in the fruits. Simply I can write like this. Fruits is equals to, I can specify some list. Let's say I'm writing 10 and 20. So it's possible. So when I run this program, you can see I'm getting an output 10 and 20. Now don't say that this list is constant and I have modified the values of list. No, the values of list are not modified. Instead, Dart has created another object of list, and that new object is assigned in the fruit list. You might say that do you have a proof? Yes, I have proof. Simply do one thing, simply print address of this fruit. Now here I'm simply printing the address of this list, and here also I'm printing the address of list. Now you can see when I run this program, at this place I'm getting the address, and after assigning the values 10 to 20 in the list, I'm getting the different address. So it means the list that I have here, it's a different than the list that I have here. Practically, I just want to explain that it's not possible to modify the contents of this fruit list. I have modified the entire list. That is, I have created another list object, and that list object is assigned to fruit. But if it is made with const, so it's not possible for me to modify the fruit object itself. That's it for this video. See you guys in the next video. If you really like the way I'm teaching, then don't forget to like this video, share it, subscribe my channel, and hit the bell notification button to get my latest videos.